Do. Hello. Dolly is here. Hello, Dolly. Michael Baker. Hello, Michael Baker. You're welcome. You're welcome for putting this on. I have I'm using this new program, and it's called OBS, and it's okay, but there's this delay, and I'm not used to it yet. I don't love it, but I'm probably seeing the reality of what you all are seeing. But sometimes it messes with my head. Hi. Hello. Okay. Oh God, I sounded like my dad for a second there. That's terrifying. Oh my God. Okay. Hello. That's what he would always say. Hello. So I should not practice that. This morning was really cool. This is my first time using OBS, which means I can have a wait screen, which means I can start the streaming service so people can find it before I actually start, you know, the official streaming start thing, you know, if that makes sense at all. And I can share slides, pictures, and I can go like this. Ah! Where's my thing? Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. No, that's laptop. That's main. Where's my webcam? Oh no! My webcam isn't working. I'm going to be so sad. Maybe this is it. Oh, there it is. Well, that's a stupid problem. That's odd. I wonder why it's doing that. Interesting. Hold on. Let me make me smaller here. Oh, I see it. Okay, hold on. Well, technical difficulties. There I am. There. There I am. Okay. Yay. This wasn't this way this morning. Oh, I see what I'm doing. Hold on. There. Okay, now I have my keyboard. My little... There's my hands. Yee. And I've got me. Main cam. There I am. So I didn't know I had to reset this up every time I started it. Thank you. Thank you, Dolly. I think I've got it now. So, there. Yay. And I can share pictures from my laptop. So like that. Let's see. Slide. Let me turn that one off. And I'll turn this one on. There we go. See, I have pictures. I wish you could see my mouse. I need a pointer for the pictures. So, how many people are here? Do I have 2 people? 2 people, 2 people? It looks like it. Michael, do you have any questions? I do have something I can share. I've got some slides and stuff. But do you have a question, Michael? Or a thought? Or anything you want to share? Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, well. It is too hot. Amy! Amy Crafton is here. Hi, Amy. Look at my new setup. It's so fancy. I'm so excited. I have 3 people here. I'm so excited. I'm going to make me bigger. There, I'm bigger. At least for the moment. So I've got 3 people. If no one has a question, I will... Harry! Oh my gosh. I've got 4 people and 3 people and a mentor. So now the pressure's on. Harry is here. The pressure is on. Let's see. How about where we are supposed to listen to beats during oral checks? I can do that. We can do that one. Okay, let me make me smaller. Adrian, 5. I have 5 people. I'm so excited. Life is good. Yay. Let me make me about there. But it's kind of cool. I get to have the picture-in-picture now. I'm all excited. Okay, so keyboard. Woohoo. Let's see. That's a good one. Let's see. Who's here? Specifically, I can hear, Michael says, specifically, I can hear the overall beat rate, but the actual coincident partials, are hard to pick out that beating. Yes, I understand. Okay, so first, before I explain this, let me say that this has been fascinating for me. We hear, let me make me a little bigger. There I am. We hear a little differently. And I didn't know how differently until just this past year. Some of us hear, and Amy knows about this, some of us hear the pitch of the beat at the pitch we're playing, even though it's not actually there. It's an aural illusion. What was the book or whatever that describes how differently people are? I don't know. Let me ask Tim, because he's in the room. Tim, was there a book that described how people heard differently? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, music ecstasy in the brain, something like that. Music ecstasy in the brain. Okay, so Michael, that's you. Yeah, that's me too. And it makes it harder to hear the upper partials. I have one student who hears no pitch right here when she plays it. She only hears the partial. It's way easier for her to pull out partials and what she wants to hear. No, it doesn't actually. Michael asks, does that have to do with musicians versus non-musicians? No, it has to do partly, as far as my understanding is, it has to do with the structure of our skull and how our ears are wired to our brain. So it's like visually, let me take this out for a second.
Jordan says the ear canal in the shape of a pinna.
Yeah, the ear canal can be shaped differently. All kinds of stuff. Tim is in my room with me. So visually, just look. This makes a lot more sense if you know this. Visually, some of us, me included, can picture anything we want in our brain. If I think of a red apple, I can picture a red apple. I can picture me eating the red apple. Some people cannot do this. Some people can picture nothing at all. Some people can picture the concept of an apple, like that's fuzzy. Some people just have black and white. They have no color in their mind's picture, which blows my mind because I've always pictured everything. And then there are people who can read to themselves, which I can do silently. So it's like you're reading aloud, but you're not. It's only in your head. Some people cannot read aloud, and I know people who cannot read aloud. And I've asked them, how do you remember stuff, or how does it process? And they're like, it's really hard for me to understand because I don't do that. But so it's that way with hearing. And some of us hear aural illusion of the pitch of the beats on the pitches, the fundamentals of what we're playing, and other people don't. And then there's everyone in between. You can hear more or less of the partial. I can hear the partial if I really focus on it, but I have to really focus on it. So for example, let me see, there we are. Let's go with C and E for a minute here. And the sound, as far as I know from feedback I've gotten, the sound, the sound seems to be okay in a stream, but then on the playback it's a little weak, it's fuzzy. So I apologize that it won't come through later. Hopefully it'll come through now. So what I'm hearing right now, now there's other beats in there, but that's, to me, that's the one I need to focus on. So the ratio of a major third is 5-4. Okay, so we're going to look at our partials. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the lower note, and 1, 2, 3, 4 from the lower note, and they line up here. So our first coincident partial is on this E. So if I wanted to hear that pitch, it's really hard for me to find it unless I ghost it first. So if you hold, there's two ways to ghost. There's actual ghosting where you hold the keys down just to keep the dampers up, and then you whack the coincident partial. My microphone may or may not pick this up. I'm gonna do it again. Now I can hear it very clearly at this pitch. Okay? Now what I call active ghosting, I'm going to play this interval kind of quietly, and I don't know why it works better. If you're just ghosting, you just have to hit it once. But for active ghosting, it works better if you hit it twice. I don't know why. At least it does for me. So I'm going to play... Oops, sorry. So now I can really hear that pitch above the fundamental pitches. Michael, can you hear that on the video? Is it coming through? You can let me know. But if you can't hear the pitch you're looking for, ghost it. Now, once I've ghosted it, and I've really heard that pitch, I think so. Okay, sorry if it's quiet. This is a little tricky. I'm going to work on ways to make this better. I don't really know this program yet. So, now that I've heard the pitch, now I can play this and it's easier to focus on it. I can just hear it better now. But as long as you hear the correct beat rate, it doesn't matter if you hear the pitch or not. You don't need to hear the pitch. You just need to hear the correct beat rate. If you're having trouble identifying that, then you need to ghost to get the correct beat rate, because there's other partials up higher that are going to mess with you. So if you ghost, get the correct, once you have it, I don't care if I hear it down here as long as I have the right beat rate. So I hope that was helpful. If you don't hear it on this video well, try it on your piano. And that's how you can do that. And you can do that with fifths, fourths, also with fifths. So let's say I want a fifth and I want to listen to the second coincident partial. I'm doing that because it's going to fit into my screen. That's the only reason I'm picking that right now. So I don't have to move it down to the bass. So if I have C to G here and I want to listen to the second coincident partial, the first one, it's the interval ratio is 3 to 2. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So my first coincident partial is here. And I can ghost that. My second one's up here. I can ghost that. But what's cool, since this is the coincident partial, you can also ghost the check intervals. So the check note for this coincident partial, you go down 2 octaves and a major third from the coincident partial. So here I go down 1 octave, 2 octaves, major third. Okay? So this is how I'm going to measure the second coincident partial of a fifth. And I can ghost those. So I go here. I'm going to do it active ghosting. And then, and I can measure my fifth that way. I hope you know what it means to measure a fifth. If you don't, I could talk about that. But I think, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can say. I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how you can find the beats and coincident partials you're supposed to be looking for. You need to know either or the harmonic series or the ratio of your interval. So if I know a fifth is a 3 to 2 ratio, then I know I need to go up the third partial from the lower note, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and the second partial from the upper note. And to get the next one, you just double it. And to get ones after that, you just keep adding 3 and 2, and you just keep getting coincident partials. But we don't really go past the second with fifths. So I hope that answered your question. Did it answer your question? I hope it answered your question. Let's see. Yeah. So the book, I think it's Robert Jourdain. Great, thank you. Yes. Okay, good. Good, Michael. I'm glad. I could hear the ghost. Oh, good. Michael says, I could hear the ghosted partial when you played it. Here's another question. You said there's multiple. Yes, there's multiple beats going on at the same time. When would you try and find a different coincident partial? Okay, so the multiple beats are coming usually from places I don't want. So let me address that first. Other than the first most prominent. Okay, so with major thirds, I want the first coincident partial. So I'm going to ghost to latch onto that beat rate and follow that one. So like if I'm progressing thirds going down into the bass, I'm going to have to maybe check that. But by the time I'm in the bass, I'm going to be using tenths anyway. But they sometimes get fuzzy and you hear extra beat rates. So I'm going to hit that first coincident partial to latch onto the one I want to hear. On a tenth, it should be an octave above the upper note. So you can you can do that as I go down. So if I'm not hearing it, I can do that. And then 17ths, let's see, 17ths, you're on the coincident partial, so you can't really ghost it. But if you go up an octave, it'll still give you information. It'll still give you good information, you know. It'll help. So as far as what not to hear, I'm just trying to tune everything out other than the first coincident partial. So if I want a different coincident partial, which I occasionally do with a fifth, okay? So I'm going to go up here to give myself a little more room in the bass, and I am going to raise my camera up to give me a little more room in the bass. That'll do. Okay, so with a fifth, if I want the first coincident partial, you go 2 octaves in a major third or a 17th from the coincident partial note. So that's going to put me down here. Notice it's an octave below the note I used before. So the second coincident partial is the middle note in a minor chord. The second coincident partial of a fifth is the middle note of a minor chord. And you just take that down an octave to get the check note for the first coincident partial. Let me say this again. I said it wrong. I say things wrong all the time, so you just have to bear with me. The check note for the second coincident partial of a fifth is the middle note of a minor chord. That's what I meant to say. And I meant to play a minor chord. Then you take that down an octave for the first. So notice this one. Okay, that's like pure or even wide, maybe. Yeah, so we're very close to pure, possibly wide, but listen to my second coincident partial. I'm narrow. Okay? So, which partial I use depends on the inharmonicity of the piano, how extreme it is. If I have a piano with very high inharmonicity, I have found recently that tuning the fifth pure at the first coincident partial gives me a nice second coincident partial narrow fifth. And if I tune with that, I get a very nice pure 12th tuning, pure 12th style tuning, because as you take the fifth out, which is narrow at the second coincident partial, so it is usable, but it's pure at the first, then you tune out from there and your 12ths fall very, very close to pure. It's a nice way to do it. I talked about pure 12th in my morning stream, and how I think about that. Let's see. Did that answer your question? Let's see. What was the question again? Yeah. Multiple beats going on. Oh, I got a little bit off track. So, if I'm listening to the first coincident partial of a fifth, and I tune that to be slightly narrow, my second coincident partial can beat up to 2 beats a second. It can be booking. So depending on what style I'm tuning, hi Dolly. So depending on what style I'm tuning, I may ignore the second coincident partial or pay attention to it, and I can tell which one it is by ghosting or measuring it. I can tell which one it is by measuring it. So I mentioned inharmonicity. So first, Michael, did I answer your question? I hope I answered Michael's question. Dolly's question: can you explain how inharmonicity shifts affect what we hear? So that is related to what I just said. So this is regular. Okay, Michael, if you think of another question that I didn't quite answer or another way to word it, just ask again and I'll try if I didn't quite get it. It's a little hard with text. Oh, that's another thing. I'm going to see if I can use this OBS program to put a zoom on here. I don't know yet if I can. If I can, I'm going to try it, because we can do live stream on YouTube and Zoom at the same time. That way, if people want to get in Zoom, they can pop in and actually verbally ask questions and we can talk instead of just having the text. And then people who don't want to get on Zoom or can just find the live feed and just want to hang out, they can just hang out, and you can still ask questions via text. So I want to try that. But so an inharmonicity shift, like I said, if I have a fifth and there's high inharmonicity, I can tune it pure at the first, have it narrow at the second, and have a nice tuning. However, if you have low inharmonicity, you got to be a little more careful with that, because if you're pure at the first, it's not going to be very narrow at the second, and you just have to kind of guesstimate, engage, and check other things. If you have an inharmonicity shift, I'll explain that in a moment. If you have an inharmonicity shift, it can measure the same at both coincident partials, and it can measure. Let me get this right. If I tune the first one pure, the second one could be wide. If there's a shift in the lower note. So I will go into that. Does anyone else have any questions about this before I go into Dolly's thing? Huh? Ooh, my husband just finished something for me. It's really cool. We're gonna squirrel. I'm gonna take a deviation here. So here. Oh my God, look at this. I'm so excited. Squirrel. Yeah, instrument. This is rare instrument day or something like that, like unusual instrument day. So we're like, people are sharing unusual instruments and their stuff. We're like, what's so unusual about that? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I get to play that later. Okay, so back to the topic at hand. Let me figure this out. Your violin grew a string. Robert, hello, Robert. I didn't know you were here. If someone's here and they don't say hi, I don't know you're here, just so you know. Gorgeous. I know, right? Isn't it wonderful? It's not a violin, though. It's a viol. Where is it? Let me see. Hold on. I'm going to show. Okay. There's two squirrels. Sorry. Squirrel. I'm on a side quest now. Okay, so this is a violin. And you see how this is a non-example. See how thin it is? See how thick this is? So you can't fit this under your chin. This is a viol. The most common viol is called a viola da gamba, and you play it kind of like a cello, but it's not a cello. And you set this one on your lap, and you play it with a bow underhanded. So you can't put it under your chin. It's too, oh my God, it's really fat. Anyway, Robert, I just got here, so hi, awesome. Okay, I am gonna go back on topic. Oh, that's a really good question. Michael asked a really good question. Do stringed instruments like that have inharmonicity too? Yes. There's a caveat with this. So all instruments have some form of inharmonicity, okay? But there's a bizarre quirk. I don't know what. Do you remember where you read that? Helmholtz. Oh, Helmholtz, a book by Helmholtz. I have that book. Tim found a place in there, and it seems so. If you pluck a violin string, you can read the inharmonicity. When you bow it, as soon as the bow gets going, it locks. They do what's called, is it called locking?
Harmonic locking.
Harmonic locking. That's the phrase I couldn't remember the other day. There's a harmonic locking. So you start to bow, there's a hint of inharmonicity in the attack, and as soon as the bow gets going, they lock into a mathematically pure harmonic series.
If everything's right.
Yeah, if everything's right. Yeah, so you have non-speaking length issues and all that kind of thing. But that's fascinating. So most instruments have some form of inharmonicity, more or less. Pianos have higher inharmonicity than most, so we don't have to deal with the same kind of problems. A harpsichord has a little bit. Organ, the flue pipes kind of have almost none. Reed pipes can have a little though, but it's a very tiny amount. But that's a really good question. Okay, back on topic here. Let's see if I can do this now. Here we go. Okay, so I don't have a pointer, so you're going to have to bear with me here. If the top two keyboards, the top oh, I keep wanting to put my mouse on there. The top keyboard represents, let's say, C4, okay, at the bottom to the left, and then the black dots above the C4 to the right are the harmonic series. So the bottom keyboard represents C3, and then the harmonic series follows above that. And I've lined them up in a way where, like, if I tune C4 to C3 to where the first coincident partial is lined up, meaning I have a 2-to-1 octave, so that's why I have a straight red line up and down, then if you look to the right of that, you will see the red lines angled to the left. That means, so basically the second partial of C4, excuse me, the second partial of C4 is flat of the fourth partial of C3. So if I tune an octave pure at the first coincident partial, it's going to be narrow at all the partials above that, and it will get gradually more and more narrow. Okay, then the second pair of keyboards I have lined up in a way that kind of, thank you, that kind of shows the octave tuned at the second coincident partial. So it's wide at the first, but narrow at the next two. Okay, and then now I have two more keyboards. So the top pair of keyboards on this page, I've lined up the third coincident partials, which means they're wide at the first two, but narrow at the fourth. And then the last one, I've lined up the last pair of coincident partials, which means it's wide at all the ones below that. That reminds me, let me show you something. So with no inharmonicity, if I have an octave, I can line up all the coincident partials at one time perfectly with no inharmonicity. I hate this camera sometimes. There I am. That's not bad. Okay, so first coincident partial, second coincident partial, third, fourth. I just line them up. When you tune an organ, that's kind of what you do. Okay, but we have inharmonicity. So if I do this, now I'm showing the inharmonicity. If I line up my first coincident partials, this second partial of C4 is now showing to the left of the fourth partial from C3, which is showing more to the right. That means my octave is compressed at the second coincident partial. The second partial from C4 is flat of the fourth partial from C3. Okay? If I line those up, if I widen my octave, make it wider, line them up, I am now pure at 4-to-2, wide at 2-to-1, and I'm still narrow at the ones above that. Okay? So if I line up the next pair of coincident partials, I've made my octave even wider. I am now really wide at 2-to-1, a little wide at 4-to-2, pure at 6-3, but I'm still narrow at 8-to-4. And I can keep doing that. If I line up 8-to-4, I'm even wider at 2-to-1. Now that works with all intervals, except our octaves we want to be pure at a particular coincident partial, whereas fifths, we don't. We want our fifths to be narrow and our fourths to be wide. Okay, so with that in mind, let me go back to my slides. If I go to my next slide, here I've got fifths, and if I line a fifth up pure at the first coincident partial, I'm narrow at the second. And that's what I was talking about earlier. That's my current position on my C to G on my piano right now, or whatever I played. I think I played C to G. Anyway, the bottom pair of keyboards, I have it lined up pure at the second coincident partial, so I'm wide at the first. All right, now this is regular inharmonicity. In fact, I think I have one more. So a fourth. If you tune a fourth pure at the first coincident partial, it's narrow at the second. Same thing. If you tune a fourth pure at the second, it's wide at the first. And on a side note, I did try to tune some fourths pure at the second coincident partial, and they weren't wide enough at the first, but it was on this piano, and this piano has lower inharmonicity. It's a Yamaha, so I don't know yet if that would work on like a Steinway or something. So anyway, now here's my side quest. Squirrel! Is inharmonicity always consistent? This is the thing that is annoying. It's not. So we're going to look at what happens when there is a sudden decrease or increase in inharmonicity with a particular note. There is typically a decrease in inharmonicity with the first wound string, but not always. And honestly, I have found shifts in inharmonicity all over the low tenor on different pianos. The better the piano, the less likely you are to run into this. But an increase in inharmonicity in the lower note or a decrease of inharmonicity in the upper note will give you this same effect. And you don't really know which note it is if you experience this, but there's ways to kind of figure that out. So if I have an octave and I tune it pure at the first coincident partial, if I have an increase in inharmonicity in the lower note, all it does is exaggerate what's already there. So the next coincident partials are going to measure very narrow, but like more narrow than you'd expect. Otherwise, it really doesn't cause you a whole lot of trouble. But a decrease of inharmonicity in the lower note can cause you trouble. What usually will happen is you can tune it pure at all the coincident partials. The diagram I'm showing you right now, I have never actually experienced, where in theory, if you tune it pure at the first coincident partial, it can actually measure wide at upper partials. But I have had it to where it was pure at all the coincident partials, which can happen with a decrease of inharmonicity. Well, come on, there we go. It's thinking. My internet's kind of slow today. So if I have, what is this? This is a fifth. Okay, if I tune a fifth pure at the first coincident partial, I expect it to be narrow at the second. If I have an increase in inharmonicity, because the lower note has a head start. In fact, I need to go back over that on my piano. The lower note has a head start in inharmonicity. If there's an increase in inharmonicity, it's going to go even sharper and it will be extra narrow at the second coincident partial. So if that happens, just tune it pure at the first. Decrease in inharmonicity, however, if you tune it pure at the first coincident partial, it can be wide at the second. So if I have regular inharmonicity, what's on my screen here? Let's look at C and G. If I have regular inharmonicity and I tune it pure at the first coincident partial, I'll be slightly narrow at the second. Okay. If I have, and basically the lower note, like I said, has a head start. That's why we have to deal with this. So a unison, in theory, you should be able to line up a unison at every coincident partial at the same time. The only time you can't do that is when the strings are what they call not paired, where they have different inharmonicities. Then you're going to have trouble getting a unison because you can line up either the lower partials or the upper, but not both. And so if you get a false beat situation where each string doesn't seem to have a false beat, but when you put them together they do, it's probably this. It's probably an inharmonicity difference between the two strings. So you can line up the lower partials or you can line up the other upper partials, but not both. And you just have to put it in the least offensive spot. So if, back to my fifth, regular inharmonicity puts me narrow at the second coincident partial when I tune it pure at the first. A increase in inharmonicity just exaggerates that. A slight decrease in inharmonicity can make it to where these partials actually both line up. So you can tune it pure at both coincident partials at the same time. But a decrease in inharmonicity, a sudden decrease in inharmonicity, you can tune it pure at the first coincident partial and it will register narrow at the second. If I tune it pure at the second, it will be wide at the first. That can seriously mess with you. Okay, let's see. Amy, if a unison is not paired, does that mean the hitch pin is at a different length? Oh, no, not necessarily, no. They can have different thicknesses. One string might have an irregularity in its thickness, which can also cause a false beat. This most often happens with wound strings because the windings are not identical. That's where you're usually going to find it. I have found it in the tenor, but very rarely, almost never. It's usually in wound strings. Hitch pin. No, it's not that, because you can have different lengths from hitch pin to bridge and have a good solid unison. So no, that's not it. It's differences in the string. Oh, wait a minute. You can have a difference from the bridge to the V bar or A graph. So if you ever see sometimes on Steinways or some other instruments, the bridge isn't notched square to the strings. It'll be at an angle. They did that on purpose because they're jerks. They did that on purpose specifically to mismatch the strings because they believe it gives it more character. Oh boy. And so you can't tune a really clean unison, which I just like a really clean unison. That's me. I prefer the Yamaha kind of sound. Some people really love that Steinway sound where it's richer, fuller, and I guess that's true, but to me it's just noisier. So it depends on your perceptions and all that kind of thing. That was a good question. Okay, so I'm going to come back to why this is important in a minute. This is a really long explanation, but I had all these slides. I'm so excited. I'm almost done here. So this was the fifth I talked about. Let me see what my next slide is. Oh yeah. So here, I'm going to talk about this on the piano. What happens to a major third if the lower note has a sudden decrease in inharmonicity, but that note was tuned with the reference of the octave, fifth, and fourth? And the answer is it will beat too fast. I'm going to show you why. So if I tune, let me get my regular inharmonicity here. If I tune, actually, how am I going to do this? I don't think I can do this. Yeah, I can. Let me think a second. If I tune the lower note of a fifth to say be pure at the first coincident partial, but I'm also tuning it from the fourth. I want it to be, I want my fourth to be on the wide side, preferably, Now with these inharmonicity shifts, sometimes you can get it pure at the first coincident partial and it'll be pure, the fourth will be pure at the first coincident partial. That's really annoying. So you might have to pay more attention to the second coincident partial of the fifth in that case, and see what you can do with that. But what can happen, a major third, you're looking at a much higher coincident partial here. Wait, where am I? 5 to 4, there it is, 5 to 4. So if a major third is tuned, we're up here. But if I'm tuning a fifth, I'm down here, I'm lower in the harmonic series. So the lower note has a huge head start with inharmonicity with the major third as compared to the fifth in a sense. The partials are gonna be sharper. So if I tune a note and the fifth and fourth are good, but then I come down with major thirds and all of a sudden they speed up, I know I have an inharmonicity shift. It's usually the lower note. And you can tell that by comparing the first and second coincident partials of the fifth and the octave. If they both measure the same, then it's you can identify which note it is. If I do fifth, octave, and the first and second partials have the same kind of relative position, then I know it's the lower note. But if they don't, then I might want to look at my upper note and also do fifth, octave, and compare so you can get an idea, but it's usually a lower note, unless you're already into the bass, in which case all bets are off. But anyway, so what I do is if I have beat rates that speed up, like really, really speed up, I will raise that lower note, whatever it happens to be, and I will make the fourth pure or the fifth beat not more than a beat a second at one of the coincident partials. So one of them can beat more than a beat a second, but the other one cannot beat more than one beat a second. And I tell that by the difference here. So this is, that's pushing a beat a second at the first coincident partial. I can hear the second one beating about 3 beats a second. So that, I just bring it up as sharp as I can without having offending fifths and without my fourths crossing past pure. Then, if it's still faster, I will leave it. If it's too slow, I know I have room to push it back down, and I'll progress my thirds and sixths I check my 6. I don't want my 6 to speed up either. So, I just do the best I can to balance that, because thirds and 6, different coincident partial. You can get a different reading. They can come out differently. If I'm coming down and my thirds get way too slow, I may try to drop it down. My bottom limit is a pure 5th at either coincident partial. It can be wide at 1, but not both. And then a 4th, 2 beats a second. It's my personal limit. That's just my personal choice. And so that's how I manage inharmonicity shifts. They rarely happen above C4. They almost never. They happen in the low tenor and crossing across the break. And you can get something like that in the bass, but it's a little more fuzzy down there. So, okay, let me think. That was a lot. So, Dolly, did I answer your question? Oh my gosh. That was a lot of information. I had too many slides today. But it's cool that I can do this. I had slides. I'm so excited. Okay, would be super cool to see a class at the convention on inharmonicity shifts, tuning challenges, using a piano that has a lot. Maybe not a brand new Yamaha. That's a really good idea. I may do that. So at the last convention, I did do a class on this. These are slides from my class. But I did not have a crappy piano. That's a really good idea. I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to make that class. I haven't made a class proposal for the next convention yet. I'm going to do it. I like it. How to tune a piano-shaped object. How to tune a PSO. I like it. I think I'm going to propose it. That would be absolutely hilarious. Oh my God, it would be awesome. Thank you for the suggestion. That's the one thing that I think was missing most at the convention. Did you catch my class? Were you in my class? I didn't tune it, but I did explain it. All the pianos, were super nice. No real examples on not so nice pianos. Yeah. So part of it is, we want to promote high quality work, and that's easiest to do on high end pianos. But we have real world situations, and we do want to promote good work on real world situations as well. So that's a good point. Harry, Al Sanderson used to teach a class called Taming the Wild Spinet. I would love to have seen that class. Did you ever take the class, Harry? Did he talk about any of this stuff? Or did he, I'm sure he talked about compromises. He may not have talked about it in the same way I do, but I bet he did some of this kind of stuff. Because it gets wonky. Yes. Yay! I'm so excited. Harry said yes. So he talked about this thing. So I had to figure this stuff out by myself. I did not have help. It's been an adventure. I wish I had had his class. That would have been nice. Because no one's teaching it. I'm glad he taught it. I'm glad somebody was doing that. Robert, I was there. Your husband was a master page slide turner. He's not here right now. I'm going to ask him, I'm going to tell him that when he comes back up. Thank you for coming to my class. That was fun. Yes, he was the master page turner. He helped at the first part of the class, but the second part of the class, he was just my lovely assistant. Dolly, let's just say I will have to watch this 100 times and take notes. But you did so well as always. Thank you, Dolly. I think my morning presentation was a little more thorough, so we should go watch that. Harry, dealing with the different inharmonicity from tenor to bass. Yeah, that's what I want to do, a class on that. I think that would be cool. Amy, what are the physical characteristics of a string section that cause shifts? Oh, okay, so I don't understand all of that, but I can tell you that I have a Sommer vertical that has some pretty significant shifts in it, and the people who know about that kind of thing keep telling me, Maggie, you need to restring it. And so they're telling me, and this makes perfect sense, they're telling me that the gauges were chosen poorly. So it's either bridge position, exact bridge position, and the gauges of the strings not being exactly right for the length of the speaking length. So if they made a mistake and they accidentally figured the wrong gauge of string, it will cause this. It will cause this. There's a very cool video by, I'm going to get it. Oh, the fella who sells piano wire. Oh, shoot. Arledge piano wire. If you go, I'll put a link in the description later after this is loaded up. That's a good question too. Hold on. So let's see if there's a link to a video where he talks about longitudinal pitch versus the other word for pitch. And it's cool. He can take a guitar pick and scrape it along the string and get a pitch. And it's the pitch it's supposed to be. He can detune strings up to a half a step off to where like 3 half steps are all the same. He'll make the lower one sharp and the upper one flat. And he'll make 3 strings all the same pitch. But when he runs the guitar pick along it, they still produce the pitch they're supposed to be. That blew my mind. I'll put it in the description after I've edited gotten the time markers out of here. Can age wear increase harmonicity over time? So in theory, it's not supposed to, but what can happen, I don't know the real answer to that question, but what can happen is like if you get rust on strings and things like that, it can change inharmonicity. It can cause false beats. If anyone has used TuneLab, the display on TuneLab can actually show you every pitch that's coming out of a string. And on spinets and PSOs, I know that it can put out, strings up at the top end can put out 2 or 3 pitches. So you're going to get false beats just from that because there's literally 2 pitches beating. But I don't really understand everything that's causing that. I've heard theories about rust and cheap wire that's not perfectly the same width all the way down. Making wire is crazy. It's amazing they can do as well as they do. To me, I think it blows my mind. But I don't really know the answer to that question. I don't know. That's a good question. I think that's a question for Arledge. I should ask him. Pianos tend to keep the same inharmonicity. I know with my Sommer it's always the same, or it's close to the same. It might shift a little bit with the weather because the bridge will move and it will change a little, but it always has the same kind of problem. So I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So I went on and on and on with my side quest. That's the new word because I do Renaissance festivals, and when someone gets distracted, they say, I'm not distracted, I'm on a side quest. And I think that has something to do with the video game. I'm not sure, but it's my new thing now. So squirrel is side quest, you know, but I actually don't know what it means. Oh, it's late. Does anyone else have any questions? I really like the idea of a convention class on that. I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to propose. The trick is getting the piano. Especially one that has a, I'm going to get this right, a decrease in inharmonicity, because that's the most obvious. It would be hard to find one. I bet I could, because it's going to be in Arlington, and I have friends there who can find me a piano. I'll be there. Free pianos on Marketplace all over. Fabulous. That's what we need. But see, I need one that that is seriously messed up. If the inharmonicity is a certain way, it can just fall into place, and then it's nothing special. Now there is a spinet here that is ghastly. It has, not in my home, but nearby, there's a spinet that has wound strings like all the way up to like A3 duplexes, and then it has some, or like G sharp A somewhere in there, and then it still has duplexes past C4, D4 somewhere in there. And that piano is a bear to tune, by ear anyway. ETDs do a pretty good job, but yeah, nothing works the way you think it should, and so you're making lots of compromises. But it can be done if you remember your octaves, fifths, and fourths can be flexible. If you keep it in your mind that your octaves, fifths, and fourths are flexible, and you want your thirds and sixths and tenths to progress as best you can get them, you can get a pretty good sound out of it. Some people like to tune fifths and fourths or whatever and ignore the thirds and sixths and just let them speed up as they go down if they run into that situation. Slowing down isn't so offensive, but I personally hate a fast beating third or sixth or tenth down low. I think it sounds yucky. I think it just sounds bad. So I don't want to do that. You know, but that's just me. Let me think. So, random thought. What I do, if I have a unison with mismatched strings, is I will find the first, second, third. I'll listen to all the partials, listen to the whole sound. When you get the lower partials to pure, you can still hear the upper ones beating. As you push it past pure, you hear it pass, and you hear that wah starting, you hear the beat starting. You can listen to see what the upper partials are doing. You can put it in a place where the lower and upper partials are beating the same, but it kind of depends on where the volume is. If the upper partials are really loud, you may want to let those lower partials beat half a beat to a beat a second, even if they're not as loud. Otherwise, let the upper ones beat. Put the lower one in tune, lower it enough if you're on the string that is doing that. Otherwise, it'd be reversed. Okay, let me explain that. So, let me finish what I'm saying. I lower it enough to where the fundamental is like wow, like a beat every 2 seconds or something like that, and then the upper ones are still going wow, 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 wow. I'll leave it kind of there, but because most people don't hear the upper ones all that much. So if you're in a situation where one string is as I described it, that means the other one, as you lower a pitch to a unison, no, it's still going to do the same thing. It doesn't matter which string you're on, you're going to have kind of the same effect, except one string is going to have a wider expanded harmonic series and the other one's going to be more contracted. So as you lower the contracted one, as the lower one gets closer to pure, the upper one's going to beat faster. And the other one, you lower the string and it'll go past pure as the other one starts to become more pure, if that makes sense. I hope that made sense. Oh my gosh. It's too late. All right, we have 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes for questions, comments, concerns. I like Harry's suggestion and Michael's suggestion. I'm going to really think about this. I have like a month to make my class proposal. I was going to do the same class, but I like this one better. Be fun. Scary, because I'll have to tune in front of people. I don't like tuning in front of people. It's very scary. But I think it'd be good. Oh, Robert, do you have any suggestions for ignoring false beats? Oh, for example, in the 5th or 6th octaves. I will play, if I feel like I can't get a hold of it, just put things in the quietest place. Because sometimes, so 2 things. First, sometimes you can actually get some beats to cancel out with a phasing effect. It's not technically phasing, but you can get kind of a phasing effect where you put two strings in unison and some false beats will actually disappear. Not in unison, let me change that. You get a unison, you have false beats, you put one of them either a little sharp or a little flat, your false beat can disappear. If you can do that, do it. You know, if you've got a false beat in a string that's not going to go away, I will isolate each individual string and listen to each string. I will listen for a beat in each string. If a single string is putting out a beat, then I identify that, I listen to it, I know that that's the one I have to ignore. I just try to ignore that particular beat and listen to everything else. And you can hear it. You can hear unisons come in with that extra beat that doesn't really change all that much. If a beat is not changing, it's a false beat. It's just going to keep going. Sometimes you can mask it. I don't fully understand how it works, but I know you're getting a coincident partial close to that false beat partial, and it can smooth it out somehow. Amy, can you briefly discuss hammer tech when very fine increments? You push-pull from 12 o'clock position, or do you consider tight block, etc., and go from 3 o'clock? Oh, okay, hold on, Amy. Robert, makes sense, thanks. I have also had it where two strings canceled out the false beat. Kind of. So I get, yeah, kind of. Yeah, it changes it. It makes it less noticeable, but you kind of feel it. You feel this little shimmering that it's happening. I don't have a lot of time to talk about hammer technique, and it's really, I don't consider myself an expert with hammer technique. But let me just share a couple thoughts on that. And I've talked about hammer technique in some other videos as well. There I am. So, I do things that some people will say are wrong, and Harry can tell me I'm wrong. It's okay. So Adrian, if Harry tells you this is wrong, don't do it. Hold on. Come on, you. There. I'm gonna get it. There. Yay! I did it. Okay, so if I have so there's a friction issue. There's always some friction, like with the A graph, and Adrian's laughing. Thank you for laughing. So there's always some kind of friction. If you have a lot of friction, it's a different world. Like let's say you have moderate to high friction and loose tuning pins. In that situation, I'm going to be flexing a good bit. I'm going to pull like a note sharp, flex down. Let me tune a unison. Now this is a little too sharp for me to do this, but I'm going to do it and exaggerate. Oh shoot, it moved. That's okay. It was too sharp. So that's very close right now. So what I was doing is I'm pushing at an angle. So I'm turning it, but I'm pushing down while I turn it. And the reason I'm doing that is to slack the non-speaking length, to make it more slack, so it will go into the speaking length. Then when I let go of the hammer, it bounces back a little bit, increases the tension here, and it'll keep it from going flat when I bang on it, because I want my tension to be equal on a hard blow. Didn't move much. So that's pretty good. So I'm using a little bit of flex to do that. Some people say don't flex. Fine. I flex because I don't like banging. I did some test blows here, but I really want to get a feel for it and be able to do it without a lot of test blows. I don't do well with earplugs. I don't want to wear earplugs, so I don't want to bang. So that's me. Now, if I have tight pins, in fact, I've done this I made a really cool discovery, Amy. You're going to like this. If I have tight pins, I've said this before. If I have tight pins, I will put my lever close to 3 o'clock, and the natural flex that happens just from the hammer, because it's going to flex the pin this way. And if I have it this way, the hammer's going to flex the pin, this direction. Which is why you normally want the hammer in line with the strings, because it'll flex the pin and it won't affect your tuning length. It'll just move the pin left and right. If the pins are tight, you can tune this way, and when you push, it's going to flex the pin. And you don't have to do any excessive flexing. It'll just do it for you, which is kind of nice. So what I discovered, someone, I don't want to go get it right now, but someone told me to try this with a 15-degree head. It works. It works. So the higher the handle, the higher the angle up this way, the more flex you're going to get in the pin. So if you have really tight pins and you get a 15-degree angle and you just tune it at 3 o'clock, oh my God, it really helped me get some stability. And for some reason, I can tune left-handed with the high angle. I don't know why, but I just can't, which is good. On grands, I can tune verticals left-handed all day, but not grands. But with the high angle, I can do it left-handed. I'm sure it has something to do with the flex of the pin, but I really don't know. So I hope that helped your question a little, Amy, because I don't have enough time to really get into it more right now. So we are officially out of time. I might share my 15-degree angle hammer next time I do this. I don't know. People have told me that flexing the pin can damage the wood, and I believe that. I'm not saying they're wrong. It's just I'm looking for stability. I'm looking not to bang, and this is working for me. So whatever. But I like the play the viol. I doubt it's in tune. Where is it? Okay, I'll get it real quick. So Amy says, good explanation. Thank you. Play the viol. I'm out of time. Do I have a bow? This is a violin bow. This might not work. I don't have the right bow right now. Robert says, thanks, Maggie. You're welcome. Oh, you can't even see it. Ah! It's not in tune. So this is tuned in fourths. So if you play string bass, this would be kind of easy for you, but it's like 2 octaves up. So Robert says, thanks, you're welcome. I am going to continue doing this like the last Thursday of every month, once a month. I'm thinking about changing it to just once. So if I do that, it'll be every month, but every other month it'll be 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So like odd months will be 8 a.m. and even months will be 8 p.m. or something like that. Twice a day is a little hard. Robert, play that cello ito. That's what I'm calling that thing. Cello ito. It's a viol, V-I-O-L, viol. This particular one is called a pas de ce, pas de ce, something like that. But it's a viol, V-I-O-L. You can look it up. There's a whole family of them. We have several. There's a big one back there. We have a tenor one. But anyway, all right. Well, I appreciate you all coming. Let's see how many people are here. Did we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 6? 6 people have commented. Hey, cool. I'm excited. 6 people came. Woohoo! All right. Wait a minute. Robert. Oh, Robert. Wait a minute. I remember you. Oh, yay. Yes, we talked in the hallway. You were looking for Mark. I remember. Cool beans. Adrian, thanks. You're welcome. All right. Well, I'm glad you came, Robert. Yay! I get to meet more people. I like knowing people. It's awesome. I get new friends. All right. Y'all have a good evening. Y'all, I'm in West Virginia. Y'all have a good evening. And yeah. Robert says, yeah. Harry Doss says, nice job. If Harry Doss says, nice job, I'm happy. Because he is one of my mentors. And I really appreciate him. So thank you all very much. But I'll announce it on Facebook if I decide to do it just once on the last Thursday of the month instead of twice, because twice is a little hard. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Y'all take care and happy tuning. Bye.